Sometimes what feels like falling behind is actually your life refusing to keep moving at a pace that no longer fits you. That is a very different thing. But it does not feel different at first. At first, it just feels uncomfortable. You open your phone, and within seconds, it feels like everyone else is ahead. Someone is launching something. Someone is celebrating something. Someone seems to be moving faster, deciding faster, progressing faster. You close the phone, but the feeling stays. I'm falling behind. That thought can arrive very quietly. But once it lands, it stays longer than people realize. It shows up when you see other people moving. When your own progress feels slower than expected. When your current pace does not match the timeline you had in your head. And over time, that thought becomes heavier. Not just a passing feeling. A quiet belief that you are late, that you are behind, that you should be further than this by now. I think what makes this so painful is that it does not just affect motivation. It affects identity. After a while, it stops being, "I'm slower right now." It starts becoming, "Something is wrong with me." But this is where it becomes important. Because what feels like falling behind is not always about time. Sometimes it is about pace. And more specifically, the pace you are still trying to follow. At some point, most people learn a rhythm for life. A speed that seems to make sense. Do this by this age. Reach this by this stage. Be here by now. Sometimes nobody says it directly. You just absorb it. From the people around you. From culture. From comparison. From the way certain timelines are treated like proof that you are doing life properly. And for a while, that rhythm can feel useful. It gives structure, direction, a sense of what comes next. But pace is not permanent. That is the part many people do not realize until later. What once worked for you may not fit you anymore. Not because you are broken. Not because you are becoming lazy. But because you are changing. And when that changes, everything begins to feel slightly off. You are still moving. Still doing things. Still trying. But not with the same urgency. Not with the same automatic speed. Not with the same willingness to rush into things just because everybody else is doing it. And because of that, it can feel like you are slowing down. And if you compare that to people who are still moving at the old pace, it feels like you are falling behind. But something else may be happening. Something quieter. Something deeper. You may be outgrowing that pace. I have noticed this in people who are becoming more honest with themselves. They do not always speed up. Sometimes they pause more, question more, choose more carefully. At first glance, that can look like hesitation. But it is not always hesitation. Sometimes it is refinement. That is the part most people miss. Growth does not always look like acceleration. Sometimes it looks like slowing down. Not because you are losing momentum, but because you are becoming more precise, more selective, more aware of what actually matters. That changes how you move. You stop rushing into things. You stop reacting automatically. You stop saying yes just because speed looks impressive. You start thinking more, choosing more carefully, asking better questions. And from the outside, that can look like less progress. But internally, it is a different kind of progress. A more honest kind. A more sustainable kind. A kind that may not impress people immediately, but actually fits your life better. Let me bring this closer. You may notice that you no longer want to move just to keep up. You no longer feel comfortable chasing things that do not fully make sense to you. You begin to question why you are doing certain things at all. Why this goal? Why this timeline? Why this version of success? That questioning slows things down. But that is not regression. That is refinement. And this is where many people get stuck. They notice that change in pace and panic. So they try to force themselves back into their old rhythm. Move faster. Push harder. Match what they see around them. But that creates tension. Because they are no longer aligned with that speed. So everything starts feeling heavier. More forced. Less natural. And then that heaviness gets misread as proof that something is wrong. But nothing may be wrong. You may simply be changing how you move. That is a very different story. So instead of asking, "Why am I falling behind?" ask something more honest. What pace actually fits me now? Not what pace looks impressive. Not what pace gets the least questions. Not what pace would make other people stop comparing me. What pace is actually mine now? That question requires honesty. Not about what sounds good, Not about what is expected, but about what is sustainable. What allows you to move without constant internal pressure? What allows you to grow without abandoning yourself? And once you begin to see that, something shifts. You stop measuring yourself against timelines that no longer fit you. You stop rushing toward things you are not even sure you still want. You stop treating speed like the only proof of progress. Then gradually, your movement becomes more stable, less reactive, more intentional, less performative, more real. That is where genuine progress begins again. Not fast, not loud, but real. And often, real progress feels quieter than the pace you are leaving behind. So if you feel like you are falling behind, pause. You may not be behind at all. You may simply be outgrowing a pace that no longer fits who you are becoming. And once you begin to move at a pace that is actually yours, everything starts to feel different. More stable, more honest, more sustainable, and strangely, more forward. Sometimes the real shift is not learning how to move faster. Sometimes it is finally giving yourself permission to stop calling your refinement falling behind.